Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where today we're taking a look at a Legion-enabled game on everyone's favorite Supreme Isthmus. A map that I've been eager to cover some more Legion gameplay on because, well, it's arguably one of the most popular maps that has ever graced the presences of the Beyond All Reason community, and seeing Legion played on it, well, it opens up a lot of interesting strategies, right? There's a lot of defined metas, especially on the most popular of maps, and when you throw in a whole nother faction with a whole big slew of extra units, suddenly a lot of those metas tend to disappear. Or maybe not disappear, just shift ever so slightly. But today, spawning in the backline, spawning in the tech position here as the blue team leader, is a Cortex commander, a commander that goes by the name of Azok. Azok 99 and clocking in at 21 open skill with 3 chevrons, setting the pace of the match today. Apparently going to be a little bit of a slower one, a little bit of a learning curve sort of a match, so we'll be taking it nice and easy as we take a look at each of these builds, pointing out where things can be improved very so kindly, bringing a little bit of information into the light. Some people have made remarks, good and bad, about covering lower level matches. Some people prefer the higher level matches for their explosivity, and I definitely appreciate that, but there's also certainly a significant crowd, especially of newer players, that are looking for ways to improve their gameplay, and I like to imagine that sometimes one or two of them will see this video, and it's all worth it for that. So if that's you out there, feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know exactly what you prefer to see, and maybe if there was something that you learned that you're eager to share with the class, feel free. Anywho, spawning on the other side of the match here, spawning on the C lane as an Armada commander, it's going to be none other than Rysika. Rysika clocking in at 24, so a couple points higher than Azok there. Gonna be spawning in the sea lane, apparently eager to get out into the water and see what they can do. Now, there's a lot of flexibility in this position, too, because you have all these metal extractors available, and of course, you don't spawn very close to the water, so you're very, very late to get out into the water. So you have to play a really, really defensive early naval game if you do get into the water, but it also means that the majority of your economy is completely protected. Whereas, the naval player here, like where Solreal is, also an Armada commander, and also going to be playing Navy, you have 3 metal extractors and then a 4th way over here on the side. After that, though, all of your economy is out in the water. There is, save for the naval metal extractors, there's a couple of mexes over here, but this spot has been nerfed from 3 mexes down to just 2, which means, of course, that if you lose these metal extractors in the water, you're in a really, really rough way. Already, though, looks like a little bit of a 20-minute no-rush agreement right here for the two teams, as we got Resbots looking at each other right now. Using this metal that you're eagerly pulling back to the lab in order to produce units and shut down your enemy is definitely a worthwhile endeavor here. Zeus X sending out riot tanks. Okay. Riot tanks interesting, of course, because they're going to do phenomenally against these grunts. Grunts basically can't do anything about riot tanks in the early game, not until they build up to significant numbers. And, of course, once they're able to surround those tanks, doing enough surround bonus that they actually can obtain any worthwhile connection, because otherwise those riot tanks and their AoE and their impulse and all the rest of it, their high damage as well, it suddenly means that these grunts are going to fall very, very quickly. But okay, it's about an even split right here, I would say. 2 resbots here for Carlon versus the single resbot here for the pink commander, Ova Moyara. Ova Mayora. Ova Mayora, I don't know, we'll go with that. Ova is like egg, right? So Mayora sounds like Majora, so like the big, but look at these tanks, my goodness. Beautiful explosive start right here. A very high octane start as the slowest Cortex vehicle does roll its way out of the laboratory forward right here. You know what? Maybe the Tsar is a little bit slower. Yeah, those Cortex units don't necessarily aim for speed. The ones that do are definitely quite powerful, but not all of them do, and definitely worthwhile to be aware of that. Oh, a killer D-gun right there from Carolon. Only had 1 D-gun to the tank and made it worth it. Connected with all but one of those blitzes right there to tremendous effect. Beautifully done from the green commander. Nicely shutting down all those blitzes the orange commander, Aura 68, was hoping to use to jump on top of that commander. It's important to split for exactly that reason. Construction bot setting up a beamer turret on the front line is quite nice here as well. It's going to mean that this LLT that Carolon is setting up is going to be shut down, and it of course means that any lighter spam units are going to be shut down quite nicely, but we already have Wolverines on the field, so these static defenses are only going to last so long. Rocketeer available here as well, and that's always important because those Rocketeers are one of the only ways to deal with static defenses, but obviously the beamer turret having the ability to outrange the Rocketeers means, well, okay, even if the Rocketeer hadn't waddled straight into the, the attack range right there, the beamer turret, it still would have had a hard time. Or the beamer turret, rather, would have had an easy time blasting down that Rocketeer. Now, as far as build orders go, we do have Legion, by the way. It's worth pointing out. There we go. Anti-Human, the hot pink Legion commander right here, going to be spawning in as one of these good old-fashioned, beautiful-looking Legion commanders and building a whole slew of economy based on, based on E-converters is interesting. Obviously, you get a little bit of energy from these Legion metal extractors. Maybe I shouldn't say obviously, maybe some people don't know about that. So you can see this is a 2.0 metal spot. This metal extractor is only producing 1.6, so you produce a little bit less metal, but you get that steady 7, I believe it's just 7 across the board, metal, or 7 energy per metal extractor. What that means is that going for things like E-converters early on can be beneficial. Like, for instance, if you went for these metal extractors and you put a single E-converter down, you could convert the runoff energy into metal and obviously use it that way. It also means that you can get your metal extractors up and running without having to pause to build any sort of energy production like normally you would have to with a regular start from a regular faction, Cortex or Armada. Shell Shocker's firing away here. Oh, Caroline stepping a little too far forward, but it's a big energy stall for Duck Omen. Duck Omen? Maybe it's just, yeah, War Duck Omen. E-stall is actually brutal here because Caroline definitely could take a lot of damage from this, but that intermittent beam firing, it's definitely making this well, not as efficient as it probably could have been. That's the napalm launcher firing away there as well, the barrage, I believe it's called. Napalm artillery, one of the Legion T1 vehicles, fires a big slew of napalm projectiles. I believe it's 4 projectiles in total. 1, 2, maybe it's not, maybe it's just 2. Or maybe they're clumped together. Either way, fires a big clump of projectiles that coats the ground in napalm. Very difficult. Oh, it's 3, okay. 3 projectiles, and you can see it's very difficult to deal with because it denies such a massive area here. In the early game, definitely one of the most dangerous units to go up against because it's sort of a slow and insidious killer. You can see as it fires away here, it's not really destroying any of these units, so oftentimes it's hard to see exactly how much damage it's doing, but then suddenly all of your units have 0 HP or very, very low HP, and it can suddenly become really, really painful. Looks like the air player has actually gone for some LLTs and the metal extractors over on this side. Alright, not bad. These LLTs are meant to defend against a commander pushing up the hillside here. Obviously there's angles to attack this, but it does make it very awkward to do. So I don't mind it whatsoever. We also have a T2 lab coming up in the backline. Now, a little bit slower of a T2 transition right here. Looks like we've invested very heavily into wind turbines, which is a little bit more expensive as a Cortex commander, and yeah, 1 wind speed. Ugh, the blue commander is definitely hoping for a little bit better than that. In fact, I think the entire team is, but okay. This is what I've been waiting for. The Legion player in the tech spot right here is, of course, going to be going for some sort of a cheeky build, and apparently, this time around, it's going to be the Incinerator. So, a quick breakdown of what the Incinerator does. It's a barely mobile heavy heat ray cannon. It's essentially a Tsar, but instead of firing a blast every so often of high damage, what is it called? Heavy laser? That's what it's called. It instead fires a continuous beam of heat ray, so it's good for melting down single targets, but also it's pretty good at clearing out waves of enemies as well, because it targets relatively quickly, and it'll sweep the beam across all of them, which makes them very fantastic for dealing with big swarms of enemies. Swarms like, for instance, this big pack of Seekers moving forward right here. The red commander just barely getting T2 online, not contesting the C whatsoever, so just going ahead and relenting that. Means that suddenly the Seeker are in the main base. Welder is out to try and clean all these up, but a whole bunch of those Seeker, oh, that was a good D-gun. Managed to miss the metal extractor, but also managed to hit a couple of those Seekers. Always cool to see. Wind turbines in a rough position here. Barely manages to get cleaned up, but does get cleaned up nonetheless. I think if those had managed to pop these wind turbines, this would be a whole lot worse, because we don't really have any steady energy production aside from those. Well, you know what? That being said, we already have the Geo up and running over here, which is very, very useful, and more hovercrafts are on the way, so we're going to have to be aware of that, but already these welders are out on the field. Once the welders get into position, they're going to be perfect defense against those lighter units. Whoa! Janus tank just sniped a frigate right there. We never see frigates dying to Januses, and never should we. They have way more than enough range to fire away at those Januses and, well, whittle away this front line. This Wolverine that's been firing away here for ages is finally going to stumble within range of that beamer turret. Unfortunate, because that thing was a war-hardened battle general right there, but unfortunately, there's only so much it can do, and at the end of the day, not able to contribute much more to this front line. These beamer turrets have been constantly repaired, and now this beamer turret is the Silver Star general of the show. The Incinerator headed on out. We have a radar jammer and a radar bot as well joining in on the fight, and it looks like we're going to finally go for those T2 cons. So, obviously, rushing out a 2,300 metal Incinerator to the front line definitely puts you... Well, let's just put it this way. It's a massive investment to send out to the front line that your front line has to hold for a good long while. And you can see the red team pushed back quite far here. Both of these metal extractors, the 4.3s, left unclaimed. Another step you can always make, of course, is going for the overcharged metal extractors rather than the advanced metal extractors. Not sure exactly how the economy of Legion suffers or benefits from doing a build like that. Roughly the way that I think about it is that when you go ahead and go for a overcharged metal extractor, what you're committing to is a game. You're committing to sticking around on T1 a little bit longer, but you don't. Well, yeah, you don't necessarily want to transition to T2, but you also need to upgrade your production. It's a very easy way to do it. Zeus X waddling within range of that heat rate gun, and oh my goodness, the powder, well, we'll call it Lavender Commander right there, getting destroyed by the Incinerator. Okay, here's the downside of the Incinerator, though, is while it's adjusting its firing beam, it has a really hard time, and oftentimes will friendly fire quite atrociously. There we go. Medium tanks now blasted to smithereens. LLT gonna go down here as well as the riot tanks. This is one of those units that if you keep well repaired, if you keep it microed properly on the front lines, as long as you keep it properly maintained, this thing can single-handedly take down the entire front line we've got right here. And there we go. GG, our eco plays first game ever. Absurdly toxic from Tubi. Apparently unsatisfied with the eco game over here from the purple and blue commanders right here. Very quick to throw in the towel, it would seem. Incinerator very frustrating to play against because it feels unassailable, but you can essentially treat this thing exactly the same as you would a mammoth. It needs all the same things. It's very slow. It's very unwieldy. It doesn't track nearly as powerfully, so you can sometimes get away with spamming these to death, especially if you manage to get units within the enemy's ranks. So say you get a bunch of ticks underfoot of a unit composition, oftentimes you can use an enemy's Incinerator to kill their units for you. Same way that, for instance, Janice's would do the same thing. There we go. The Incinerator now blasting apart all of these T1 units very efficiently, and you can see also not overkilling very much either is another benefit for this, of course, is that when it kills one of these units, it just leaves the corpse lying around, which means that as it tears through this front line right here, easily blasting down every single one of these units, it's going to go ahead and leave a juicy reclaim pile ripe for the taking. Oh, I guess it's a little bit of overkill for those Rocketeers. Oh, maybe not. But there we go. What was that, an easy 1,000 or so metal worth of T1 units? Blasted to death in a second by the Incinerator. Beautiful cannon right here moving forward. The Gauntlet has been firing away for ages, but frankly, there's just nothing you can do about it. The walls here absorbing a lot of that impact is cool to see, but now that the Incinerator is locked on, it's going to be able to blast down that Gauntlet and anything else that steps too close. Build power in trouble right here. Carillon forced back. This Incinerator's definitely a little far forward. You can imagine if Carillon moved this commander forward in the field of this jammer. First of all, we need to turn this jammer invisible. Then we cloak the commander and move it forward. If it was standing in the radar jammer field right here, which was right about here, it would be able to de-gun down this the Incinerator. So that's definitely something to be aware of, right? If you're going to go for one of those jammers, you may as well take advantage of the fact that commanders, when cloaked, are going to be completely invisible inside of a jammer. LLTs falling on the front line here. Wonderful for dealing with spam. Terrible for dealing with basically anything out of a T2 laboratory. Wow. I'm pretty thrilled with the way that this thing has gone. We're going to get a money shot right there at this Incinerator. Firing away. It reminds me of the Scorpions. It's like a overfed Scorpion from Halo. Just with the way that it's got its 4 legs and it's got the big heavy cannon on top. Commander goes down in the distance as well as this heat ray locks onto it and starts moving forward. I like it a lot. This is definitely going to be a viable build for Legion commanders looking to play some games on the front lines of Supreme Isthmus. That's what I'm talking about, though, with the friendly fire. You can see oftentimes blasting down its friendly units.
Battle started.
The Mammoth is definitely a slightly better option as far as friendly fire is concerned, but suffice it to say that the sacrifices are not made in vain. The Incinerator is now more than happy to step forward, blasting even the medium tanks to death relatively quickly. For the record, these things are even successful against Razorbacks, is kind of my mark of how good a unit is as far as dealing with single target. These will melt about 1% per second off of a Razorback, which is relatively high. Comparable to something like a Sharpshooter, for instance, but of course with significantly more HP. Oh, and speak of the Sharpshooters, finally blasting away at this thing, and boom goes the Incinerator. The Sharpshooter's doing wonderful work, tearing down that big, heavy, unwieldy, clunky Incinerator on the front line. Yeah, a call is put out for reclaim here, but frankly speaking, I think these sharpshooters are going to be too dangerous to keep the commander around for. Resbots do manage to eat up the commander wreck here from the Lavender commander, but there is still Ova Mayora. Boom goes the commander, seemingly from nowhere, but those sharpshooters just pack the wall up, and every time they fire... Sharpshooters actually are slightly nerfed against commanders. They have a specific debuff against commanders that makes them a lot worse against them. It just reduces the overall damage that they do against commanders specifically. Understandable, because I believe 2 sharpshooter shots would essentially kill a commander otherwise. I think normally it's 3 to 4 or something like that, something within that ballpark. Well, now we're in a peculiar situation because this reclaim is available for the blue team, and it's definitely enough reclaim to bother investigating. The Seafoam Green commander has gone all the way up to T2, essentially without contesting... Whoa, without contesting the Navy. Sorry about that. Metal Extractor is still set up over here as well, and the red commander has just gone ahead and reinforced their coastline and is going to Eco. Okay. Interesting development here for the red commander. Instead of going ahead into the Navy, instead of going into anything else, going to go ahead and go into some Eco play. Now, while usually that wouldn't be the worst idea, you do have to recognize here that the Seafoam Green commander could easily have transitioned into amphibious units or air units or anything else and done a ton of damage because of the fact that the red commander isn't contesting that sea. Fortunately for the red commander, and fortune is not something you want to gamble on frequently in an RTS game, but fortunately for the red commander, it does mean that that angle isn't going to be harassed anytime soon. I see more T2 boats coming up as well. The Seafoam Green commander Sol Rio definitely in need of a scout here. Ova Mayora repairing this commander back to full health and then reclaiming it again. I think we have a uncoordinated vision of how this front line wants to push forward right here. We do have Archibus coming out of the lab right now as well. The Hutbin commander pumping out some of those long-range rail cannons, and we are going to see the Rampart, the geothermal, anti-nuke jammer, radar, drone platform, sandwich maker, George Foreman, air fryer extraordinaire. It's the one-stop shop, one thing does it all. Detector, jammer, cloaker, anti-nuker. It'll wash your shoes, it'll drive your car, it'll do anything and everything, and it's more than happy to as well. Quite well as well, I would say. It's not like a bad solution to any of those. It's quite a large jamming field. It's got quite a large anti-nuke radius. You can see the jammer is comparable to a T1 jammer, I would say. A little bigger than a T1, probably. It produces a little bit of energy as well, but also costs you some metal because it is running an anti-nuke as well in the very middle of that thing. You can see there's the Legion anti-nuke tucked away in the center. I would say it's a worthwhile investment, though. For the cost of all those things and more, you definitely make your money's worth pretty quickly. T1 Navy, definitely well worth decommissioning at this point. This is a whopping 8,500 metal worth of T1 Navy, and at this point, obtaining basically zero value. We do have a little bit of an incursion over here from Lone Wolf, the Legion commander, going ahead and going to set up a little bit of a outpost over on this side. We're going to set up a radar jammer and, of course, pump out some units to try and do some damage to Atypical, who does not even have the geothermal up and running. Looks like the Dragon's Maw pop-up flamethrower turret was actually enough to go ahead and shut down that geothermal. Nicely done right there. I feel like a lot of commanders forget about that. Ooh, and another heavy hitter has rolled out to the front lines. This is the Inferno, the Napalm Gatling artillery, and you can see it fires a rapid barrage of, well, when it's facing the right direction, it fires a rapid barrage of napalm. Extremely difficult to deal with. Another one of those frustrating to play against Legion units. There you go. You can see as it fires that barrage, it also reaches out quite a bit further. Its firing range is inaccurate. It can actually fire way further than it's indicated. Useful in a lot of senses because it does mean that it's able... Does it have multiple weapons? Is that what I'm seeing here? No, it just has the one weapon. Weird. Yeah, as you can see, this thing is targeting things way outside of its range right now. It's more than capable of reaching out quite far into the distance here. For whatever reason, it's got two zones. I'm not sure exactly why. But anyways, this thing on the front line should be able to melt through all of this because the amount of napalm that it can put down is devastating. And napalm does stack, by the way. That's another question that's come up a lot when I'm discussing Legion. The effect is, you know, some X amount of damage per time per puddle. So the amount of napalm you're standing in does matter as well as the area, right? That's sort of the double. Napalm driving backwards, apparently unable to fire when it's facing backwards for some reason, despite its cannon being able to turn 360 degrees. Apparently the gun won't fire for whatever reason. But as we come back around, surely it should be able to in just a moment. T2 is up and running here for the Yellow Commander, and T2 is well up and running right now for the Seafoam Green Commander. It hurts my soul to see these T2 boats not going and getting some value, though. Yeah. The T2 boats are so powerful, but you have to make really specific ones for this map. Namely, the capital ship, the Epoch for an Armada Commander, and the Black Hydra for the Cortex Commander. And then, of course, missile boats are also quite useful on this map as well for their ability to besiege these side bases without having to worry about shielding. There goes the Inferno again, blasting things down. The Sharpshooter is still finding a lot of value here as well. For the information of the viewer, the lovely viewer like you, thank you. Brightworks made possible thanks to generous contributions from viewers like you. Thank you. Anybody remember that? The old like PBS ad or whatever it was? I don't know. It's not really an ad. It's just kind of like a, I guess it's a thank you note. I don't. Anyway. For those of you who might be curious, the Arquebus is sort of the Legion's equivalent to the Sharpshooter. It's Legion's answer to what the Sharpshooter answers, right? Yeah, I guess equivalent is the right word for that. Anyways, Arquebus fires a heavy railgun shot and then has a long charge up. Not nearly as long as the Sharpshooter. As you can see, it fires fairly frequently. They have slightly lower range than a Sheldon, with a range of 848. A Sharpshooter clocking in with a range of 900. So Sharpshooter and Sheldon both outranging them ever so slightly, but of course Arquebus are a little bit more maneuverable. They have the all-terrain climbing capability with their 6 legs. They're a little bit more positionally adept, I guess I would say. They can move into positions that otherwise Sharpshooters and sometimes other units like that would struggle with. Sheldon's certainly on that list. Now again, with both of these navies, we're sort of not transitioning into the effective ways to siege here. One of them would be, of course, going for a land-based economy. We do have a fusion reactor starting up, but in about 4 minutes we'll see that finishing up. In the meantime, we've got tidal generators, and those are worth it. At 21 tidal speed, it's definitely worth it to go for tidal generators. Usually what I like to see, though, is if you're going to go for tidal generators, you take these bad boys, your Pathfinders, and you just go ahead and you set these up, making a massive field of tidal generators. I mean a gargantuan field of tidal generators. For anybody that's curious, if you're ever queuing up a big slab of structures like that, one of the things you can do is hold the spacebar, and it will distribute that command between any of the constructors that you have selected to build said slab of infrastructure. The red team choking here on the front. definitely losing sight of how they want to play this front line. With the tick spam continuing to march forward right here, the red commander is well and away into a late game economy. You can see all these advanced fusion reactors, and really, frankly speaking, not a very compelling defense over on the northern side. Again, it's lucky that the commander in the sea is not paying attention, is not making a big play out of all this. Hovercraft coming out of the lab right here from the purple commander. We're going for hover tanks as opposed to anything else out of this laboratory. There's not really a lot of options for Armada commanders. Armada really needs a heavy tank alternative. Maybe something with lightning, right? Maybe just an amped up version of the Seeker that fires lightning. Cortex has the Sumo. Legion has the shotgun hover tank. I don't remember the name of that one. Armada definitely hurting for hover technology. I think Armada commanders around the game would rejoice to have a heavy hovercraft option available. Something to sate the needs between T1 and T2. Something that's a little bit sturdier for sea-to-shore ambushes, but also a little bit more available being in that T1 laboratory. This is what I like to see. Here we go. An amphibious laboratory set up by the yellow commander that's going to be Lone Wolf 1. Building some of those salamanders and setting them up on shore. I really don't think this T1 lab is going to be worth nearly as much as that T1.5 T2 unit out of the T1.5 laboratory here. These salamanders are so valuable. Poison Arrow is quite good too. I would say comparable to a bull. You pay an even steeper price than the bull, which is saying something. Bulls are extremely expensive. You pay a steep price, but you also get a really fabulous unit, and of course you get the fact that it's completely amphibious, meaning you can hide it in weird places and weird angles that normally people wouldn't think to expect. Here we go, though. The March of the Carquinos. Multi-weapon wielding phalanx bot. They're a medium dual weapon infantry bot. They're quite a handful to deal with. They have their riot cannon that does quite a bit of impulse if you get too close, and they have their phalanx beam, their photon lance that can reach out and poke down units from afar. I wouldn't say they're one of those units that does ridiculous damage and are crazy OP, but once you get them up to numbers and once there's enough of their photon cannons around to blast down anything in front of them, well, this is the result. An entire base up in smoke in just mere moments as these guys flash down everything that the Powder Blue Commander did have under control. Demon, now rushed out of the lab, is going to be able to clean all this up, and clean up it all shall. Yeah, Demon pretty quick, pretty high damage. Look at those salamanders, though. Love those salamanders. The Prometheus, sort of the big brother to the salamander, firing an even more intense heat ray beam. More concentrated, more firepower, more everything. The blue team, failing to become united, and instead reaching for their keyboards rather than their units. Bombers in the air, shot down by a lot of these T1 planes, rather. Not the end of the world right there for the Seafoam Green Commander. Maybe maybe it's the change that we need in order to see a little bit more of a land assault focus. Now, longtime viewers of the channel, anybody who's known the Brightworks for a while will know this composition when they see it. This is probably my favorite composition in the game. It's very simple, but it's very elegant. It's welder sharpshooter with radar and radar jammer support. It's very elegant because it works. It fires away. You can see those welders firing away here at the ticks, and whenever those welders move far enough forward that the sharpshooters can see anything juicier, the sharpshooters take it out from afar. So the welders do their job to clear out all the spam, and the sharpshooters don't waste very many of their shots taking out things that don't really need to be shot. You can see static defenses popping right here. Long-range constructors and whatnot will fall. There goes the Starlight, blasted to smithereens. This is a beautiful composition. As long as you're reinforcing this consistently, you're going to be in a really good way. Looks like an Eviscerator. The pop-up cluster plasma artillery has been set up here as well. Always cool to see. We do have a big Marauder ball getting ready to move out. Looks like these have been queued over towards the right-hand side. All right, so we're looking to push forward on this already injured front on the right-hand side. The Tan Commander, that is, playing as the Tech Commander here for the red team. Caroline doing a great job of pushing this front line here. Can't be upset with the way that this is going. The economy in the backline is looking wonderful as well, so as long as we continue to scale as much as possible, things aren't going to be too bad. Eating up these wind turbines is probably worth it at this point. They take up so much space, and at this point, this game has been remarkably low wind speed, so I feel like it's well worth it to go ahead and just invest in a better source of energy, like, for instance, something like a fusion reactor or the like. Welders here slightly overwhelmed by the massive ticks marching forward right here. Yeah, you know what? Nicely done by the Red Commander. A massive sacrifice as far as number of units gone, but it is a worthwhile trade. Those ticks are definitely not worth nearly as much as the sharpshooters they just killed. Shutting down that sharpshooter snowball is so vital. Webbers on the front here to reclaim as much as possible is cool as well. Webbers are very effective as a... Yeah, as a... I guess you would call it effective as a reclaim unit. They're fairly quick. They have their little EMP beam, which is always useful as well. Lone Wolf de-gunning away over here on the right-hand side, trying to sneaky. Do we have any vision of this? We sure do. Radar has detected the commander, so we're aware of where it's going. Catapult going to be firing away here as well. Oh, Lone Wolf so low on HP. None of those missiles connect, not in a big way anyways. 15% still remaining for the Blue Commander. Hoping to de-gun at least one more of these units here. And once you get into that T3 game, it really does become quite easy. Oh, we've walked out of radar range. Oh no. Oh no, we've walked out of radar range right here. The Blue Commander doesn't have a radar in base. Lone Wolf going for the D-gun. Oh. Commander is detected. D-gun is away. Boom goes the catapult. Alright, a worthwhile trade. 1,250 metal versus the 4,900 metal worth of the catapult. Definitely a fair trade right there for the yellow commander to go for. Shuts down some of that T3 arriving, but right at the same time, the Marauder were here to finish it up. It actually was a wonderful play because the Marauder ended up being not microed whatsoever over here on the right-hand side. But they did manage to push forward because the green forces were pulled away in order to go deal with that commander that had snuck by. Yeah, Marauder not microed over on this side is a little bit painful. Not the end of the world. Of course, there's still Marauder heading for juicier targets as well. Yeah, they're going to find the sharpshooters rolling out of the laboratory here for the purple commander, and they are going to spot the eco as well. Prioritizing that economy is definitely what you want to go after. Those E-converters, popping those E-converters can be a huge hit in the sense that once those E-converters are down, obviously, there's no more metal rolling into the banks, or at least not nearly as much metal rolling into the banks. They can be very easy to tear down an economy after that. Starlights here have done a wonderful job of counterattacking on the front. Oh, Green Commander sacrifices himself to try and shut down this push. With the tick spam, though, Starlights can seem nearly unstoppable. They do a huge sum of damage really, really quick. A massive burst. High alpha damage is what we refer to that as. Laser towers here are not going to stand a chance, and neither should basically anything else on this front line. Yellow setting up a full-fledged base over here is hilarious. Looks like we've got a single poison arrow popping out of the water and tearing down a bunch of wind turbines over here. Very annoying to deal with, but not necessarily the end of the world. Obviously, it means these mexers are going to have to be rebuilt, but once that poison arrow is dealt with, it shouldn't be the end. Shouldn't be the end-all be-all, the undoing of the Yellow Commander, who's got a decent economy built up at this point. Hot Pink Force is now rolling through. The Meatball Striders moving forward. Catapult doing a great job of softening a bunch of those up. E-Converters popping like a beautiful fuse, though, and tearing down the entire production bases here for the Green Commander. Oh, man. Wasps in the sky trying to clean up as much of this as possible as well. Salamanders blasting down whatever they can. Yeah, the Green Base trying to rebuild. Spacey. Trying hard. But there's only so much this Commander can do. Salamanders still managed to take down that T1 lab. Very, very annoying indeed. Love the harassment right here from the... Yeah, from the red team. Trying to exaggerate the push over on the right-hand side. Meanwhile, this left-hand side, I would say, substantially defended. 5 Razorbacks going to be more than sufficient to take those down. Well, Shotgunner's on the front here. Shotgunner's quite good, but obviously 50 gunships in the air, also quite good. At a whopping total of 9,600 metal, definitely those gunships are going to serve their purpose. The air player now having to deal with a huge swarm of fighters headed across the map. Fighters jumping on top of these gunships, blasting thousands of metal out of the sky. Bombers headed along the right-hand side, and the Maroon Commander has easily won the air battle. At this point, commanding a massive and overwhelming air presence here. No anti-air available. Bombers have changed target. Oh, bombers have changed target. No splitties on these bombers is unfortunate. I feel like we might be able to get 2 bombing runs of value out of this, but not the end of the world. Bombs away. Heavy bombers devastating the base of the Purple Commander, blowing up everything save for the lab and the advanced geothermal. That's a lot of flak turrets right there. These flak turrets not prepared for an assault from the right-hand side. As you can see, these flak turrets were well prepared from a barrage from the sea, which was worth anticipating, because certainly the Seafoam Green Commander never really moved out on the map and contained any presence. Frustrating to see, for sure. The Yellow Commander having a joyous time taking over this side of the map right now. What a hilarious play. So resurrecting a commander and then using it to claim this front line. We've got mine layers here. The Trapper setting up mines from Zinsash, the blue commander, just trying desperately to shut down this side of the map as much as possible. Look at these Vanguard firing in unison, though. Those ticks, I'll tell you what, those ticks have never, and I mean ever, been deader. The most dead ticks you've ever seen. Vanguard are more than happy to fire away here at the catapults as well. They do a huge sum of damage. Their impulse is great, and they do a whopping amount of area effect as well. It means that those clumped up catapults are not going to stand much chance, but the Razorback's obviously going to be a dangerous threat to deal with as well. Loads of T1 units. Centurion, basically the baby brother to the Razorback, now meeting their T3 cousin. Seeing exactly why the cost difference and the tech difference, the investment difference is so high. Spacey gets 1 D-gun off and shuts down a Razorback, but the rest will continue marching. Prometheus trying its very best. Actually doing a great job. Prometheus blasts down Razorbacks pretty nicely. Prometheus, another one of those high single target damage units. It does have the ability to transition to other units pretty quickly, though, so I would say it's a decent unit for a lot of stuff. Ooh, the friendly fire there was brutal. Catapult firing into its friend units and suffering the consequence for it. The base goes up for the Green Commander. The advanced fusion reactor pops, and suddenly... Oh, look at this. Spacey reaching for the keyboard and becoming extremely toxic. Honestly, typical FDUS this game. Like, if you don't know what WTF you're doing, don't play. What an awful, awful way of thinking. Yeah, if you think somebody shouldn't play a game because they're bad at it, you're sort of the problem. Love to point that out whenever I see it. Do a little bit of salt mining and point out whenever whenever blatantly toxic behavior does pop up. I know it boils the blood of a lot of you guys out there. Just know that it gets to me too. I don't appreciate it as much as you don't either. Everybody's trying to learn the game. Friendly fire from the catapults is brutal. Lone Wolf going in for take 2. You can see the grave of the yellow commander over on the right-hand side. He's going back in for seconds. D-gun. D-gun. Nice D-gun right there on the demon. Wow, demon actually responding so quickly that it was able to get a shot off here. Eventually, the base of the blue commander pops as well, though. But all these commanders on the blue team reaching for the keyboard rather than reaching for the resign button. There is a noble and honorable way out of this situation. It's hitting the little resign button that usually sits on the right-hand side. Instead, these commanders opting to make fools of themselves by jumping into chat and accusing their teammates of, well, various BM. Be careful what you wish for. You might just end up being famous for it on TV. Some people probably pretty excited about that. But D-Guns from Lone Wolf doing a great job of cleaning up this base. Nuclear missile launcher D-Gun right there as well. Laboratory should be the next target. Boom goes the lab for the blue commander. Definitely cementing this victory right here for the red team. As suddenly the Razorbacks push forward into the twin-guarded base of the cyan commander. Yeah, twin guard's pretty good. Not good enough to hold up against a huge swarm of T3 Razorbacks. I believe this is the Coast Guard swarm that was repurposed into an assault squad, now tearing apart the entire economy. And what a beautiful chain reaction that was, as Zinsash's entire base goes up in smoke, and the Razorbacks carve down any semblance of hope the blue team had of sticking through into this game. Thor's rolling up the hill as well, ready to shuttle this down. Zinsash, one of 2 remaining commanders right here, but the resign vote is called. Ladies and gentlemen, well, D-Gun from the yellow commander, the last D-Gun necessary, takes out the fusion reactor. Also blows up the red commander, or the yellow commander right there. Looks like we had a plasma long-range cluster plasma cannon. Very cool indeed. We do have a capital ship up and running. It's about 1 game too late though. Capital ship not going to be able to do too much, and I think I'm going to go ahead and speed up this match because I feel that we all know exactly where it's headed. Shiva pushing over on the right-hand side. It's times like this where you just start spamming out sonar planes and sending them around the map. We know that the enemy commander's got to be hiding in the space somewhere, especially, yeah, in a situation like this. This is something I definitely wouldn't recommend. If you're looking for the honorable way to go out, just handle your units to one of your teammates. Control A allows you to select every one of your units. Hand over your units to your teammate and otherwise sacrifice your commander so that you don't have to sit here and wait. Zinsash, let them suffer from boredom. Yikes, talk about toxicity. Zinsash being absolutely a bad loser, a sore loser if ever there was one, hiding the commander in the back corner. One of the things you can always do, of course, is just spread the ticks out and try and find it. But the other is just to go ahead and send scout planes around, because you know those scout planes are going to be able to figure out where those commanders are. They have the radar built into them, so you'll see the little tick on it as well. I'm surprised the red team can't see this though. Oh, I guess it's just barely out of range of radar and the effects of the ticks here, the vision there. Boom goes the blue commander, and a well-won game from the red team. Nicely done. Always cool to see some Legion action. We got a little bit of saltiness there too. Always fun to see exactly what the meanest of players are up to and Beyond All Reason. Sure hope you guys enjoyed, and I sure hope to see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.